This is Ron Zona, retired 502 longshoreman. Okay, Ron, could you tell us how did you start on the waterfront?
I was a young buck there. I was 17 when I first started. I went down the Longshore Hall, 10th Street in Westminster, and looking for work, and managed to get a job. It was a half-day job, working at Overseas Transport, berth 4 on handstow lumber. It was quite an experience. Never done that type of work before. It was very different, hard. Got a lot of good direction and survived the 4 hours. That was my first. That was in 1967, and I left at that time, and then I came back in 1970, July of 1970. I got married. I was driving cab, and in them days used to go by cab from the Longshore Hall to Fraser Surrey Docks, and I was driving the longshoreman back and forth just about every day. And then one of the guys said to me that I got a new number to work at Fraser Surrey Docks, so I decided. I went and I parked the taxi up at the taxi stand. It was about 2 blocks from the Longshore Hall, and I said, well, I'm going to go longshoring. So I walked down the 2 blocks to the Longshore Hall. There was a dispatcher by the name of Norm, and he gave me a number to start work at Fraser Surrey Docks. So lo and behold, I got the slip, and he called a cab for me, and I got in the cab and told the driver I wanted to go to Fraser Surrey Docks to work. And he laughed at me. He said, oh, come on, Ron. He says, you're supposed to be driving cab. And I says, no, I decided I'm going to become a longshoreman again. And that's how I got my second start in 1970, and it was a good experience, great life, and I retired in 2011, I guess it was.
What was the second job like? What was it?
The second job was on the second shift on the waterfront was the working the slings at Fraser Surrey Dock. It was steel, web slings, and just unhooked and waited for the forklift to come in, of course, and take it away.
Did you need any special clothing or gear to work on the waterfront?
Yes, in them days it was wise to wear boots and proper gloves, etc. and everything. But a lot of times there really wasn't the safety code like there is nowadays, and a lot of times we wore whatever shoes we had at the time, right? But I used to wear boots and good gloves.
Did you do the same thing every day, or?
No, that's one of the things that kept me on the waterfront. Was you could work on a different ship every day, different from a different country. You could work with different guys, different days, different gangs. When I started back on the waterfront, there was still 12-man gangs, and usually that meant 2 topside driving the winches, 2 slingmen, and 6 guys down below. And it was quite a interesting job. But mind you, then in 1970, I was in my 20s.
What was the dispatch like when you got to work, when you went to the hall in the morning? How was you dispatched?
Well, it was quite a procedure at that time. You basically who could get up to the if you had a number and you were surplus and not on they used to have a board system, and but as a temporary worker, casual if you so be it, you used to just stand in line and go up there, and eventually it got down to a disc system where everybody was issued a disc with their man number on it, and you put it in a tube sort of thing, and you waited till your disc came out, and if there was surplus work, and the ones that weren't there missed, of course, and then when your name came out, you got a job and went to work. there was numerous, of course, commodities on the waterfront. When I started, there was most of it was loose. It was loose lumber, sacks of rice from the rice mills down the number 5 road in Richmond. Was also became a car dock after that, and there was Annis's Marine Terminals, which was a car dock, and Fraser Surrey Docks had a I believe it was called Sears or something like that, grain elevator, and just a pipe in the ship and sacks. I didn't get much of that done, but just the odd shift, and a lot of loose lumber at overseas, and of course used to get some fruit up from New Zealand, etc. That sticks out in my mind quite a bit because I've been in New Zealand a few times and been through the orchards there, and we got nickel matty, loose rock. It was quite a backbending job because you wore good gloves, and it was all loose rocks, picking up and putting them in banana boxes, and it was hoisted out of the ship.
Were you active in the union when you got into membership?
Yes, I felt it was my duty to serve the union, and which I did. I started out being a committee member on the Grievance Credential Board, which was basically all sort of issues amongst different people that had to be sorted out in a fashionably and proper manner. And then I ventured on to become put my name forth to become an executive member, and which I thankfully served for. You put your name forward, and if the men regarded you as somebody that would represent them well in all different situations, etc., of course they voted for you, and I just kept putting my name forward, and mind you, I took a couple of years off, of course, right, and but I served about 75% of my union membership is on some form of a committee, which was very rewarding.
Have you got any funny stories that happened all during your career as a longshoreman?
Ooh. Well, one of the ones that there was, we used to, the Port of Westminster, we used to, the West Coast, of course, shared their work. There's work in Vancouver. We used to travel there as we were called wolfers, and but I managed to work in a lot of the ports on the West Coast. I've worked in wood fiber, and I've worked in Squamish, and of course Vancouver, and never got a chance to travel to the Vancouver Island, but I would have liked to. And just for on the funny side, managed to become a foreman, but for one day only. He wanted a funny story, right?
How did the shift work on the waterfront affect your family life and lifestyle?
Well, the shift work was it was quite trying at times, and I got married young at 19, and managed to stay married 30 some years. Well, it was. I don't know what to say about it, but I know one thing though, that in the later years after in my 40s there, that with the shift work sort of caught up to me. The worst shift I felt was when I was a regular at West Shore Terminals, the coal port, was the graveyard shift, and it just seemed to consume your whole week. Your shift started at 4, and then time you got home was after midnight, close to 1 o'clock, depends where you lived, of course, and time you got some wound down and got some sleep. When you woke up, it was time to get ready and go to work again. So I think it's very trying on a man or a woman that this shift work is quite trying on the body, because it does definitely has a toll on it. Whether I don't know much about it, etc. and stuff, but from the friends I've talked to, and when we have a chinwag and stuff, guys that retired now and stuff, they've always said the graveyard shift was the worst one too. And we always tried to fit our holidays that if you got 6 weeks holidays, you could guarantee if you took them intermittently, the 1 week would be the graveyard off for sure. You know what I mean, all along, if you didn't go a month away on a trip or something. Otherwise, you got to take the good with the bad, because the waterfront did give me a good life and met a lot of fine people and etc. And it was quite a comradeship. We were very close. We still are, and I'm sure that'll still maintain in the waterfront because of the basically the respect and etc. and stuff of the workers amongst themselves, and the safety and etc. And you look after each other, watch each other's back, etc.
Is it a job you would recommend to a young person today?
Yes, I think in the transportation world is the movement of cargo is always going to be there. There's great opportunities. I managed to get a few I don't know what to call them now, but I worked as a first aid attendant, which was quite interesting. I also managed to maintain a forklift ticket and drove forklift when I so chose or was requested of me, and also drove topside, etc. Even managed to do the odd shift on the old bulldozer Caterpillar, but that wasn't my great one. Wasn't one of my great ones, because they used to call me the potato man, etc. Because they used to seem to couldn't keep the blade in the right position. But then again, never got fired, so had to be doing something right. But maybe not as much tonnage as the other more experienced. I got one little funny other one you want to hear about was the hides. We used to load hides coming from the mid Canada there, Alberta, Saskatchewan, etc. And they used to ship them out in boxcars and tied up, skin side out. And in the summertime, it was just terrible with the maggots and the smell and what have you. And I'll never forget the time that one time I wolfed and went to Vancouver. And the foreman said to me, he says, "We got to finish this container of hides," he says. And I says, "Well, I'm only work until 6. And he says, "Well, if you don't work past 6, he says, you'll never work in Vancouver again." Well, it was kind of cute. I did leave the job, etc. Right? And the funny part of it was, though, I went to the bus stop. I didn't drive a car in them days. And I got on the bus. You got to remember, this is hides. This is one of the most smelliest jobs that I've ever encountered. And when I got on the bus, I walked to the back of the bus, and it was packed. And before the bus went 2 more blocks, I had just about the whole back of the bus to myself, and it just looked like a can of sardines up near the bus driver. And so I thought to myself, well, I should have been maybe a bit more considerate and, even warm a bathing suit home or something. But I'll tell you, that was one of the worst jobs that I experienced, plus the people that crossed my path that day.